Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Caesar Carino, your host, and our guest today for the second time is Homer Baldwin. Homer, we had you on not too terribly long ago because we wanted to hear a little bit about the story of Homer Baldwin, but it took us a full hour just to get from Homer Baldwin's birth until age 3 or 4, and we have so many more things we wanted to get. So I've asked you to come back to tell us the one big thing that you are going to offer as a legacy for the city of Wadsworth and for posterity, and that is the films. Now, I started counting the films, and I probably lost track, and we got about 25 or 30 films, which are full-size films that you've done. And I have no idea how many documentaries. Now, tell us the difference between a film and a documentary, and how many of each you've had.
A documentary can be a film or it can be a tape. In this particular case, I've got about 20 films with perforations in them that run through a projector, and about 60 tapes.
Now, the 20 films that you're talking about, these are the same kinds of films that you would go to the Strand. Well, we don't go to the Strand anymore, but when we go to the movies, that's exactly what you would see.
Yeah.
They're how long?
Well, see, the longest one's about 45 minutes. That's one I shot many, many years ago with Peter Bomarito, who was the head of the
rubber workers.
And in that one we had Ted Kennedy and Hubert Humphrey.
Ted.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great story. Remind me to tell you about that story in Washington when we get.
Can we hear that right now? Because we're going to forget about it.
What happened is that we two things stick out in my mind. We were down in Washington D.C. and we're shooting. Of course, we've had appointments with these people, and we got up in Hubert Humphrey's office and he was late. It was that time that my friend and partner Cal Clifford discovered he needed a tiny plug or we weren't going to get any sound.
Right. Now,
and he ran back across Washington, the state of Washington, or the city of Washington, back to the hotel and got it, and back in time for Hubert Humphrey.
Now, in 2014, when we celebrated 200th, there might be people who do not know the significance of Hubert Humphrey. Tell us who he was at the time.
Well, he was a senator, an influential senator. A president elect, hopefully. He ran for president, and he was a senator, I believe, from Minnesota.
Right, and Humphrey is now dead.
Yeah.
He's now dead. But he, at that time, was a powerhouse.
Oh, yes.
A powerhouse.
Yeah,
and you had the opportunity.
Yeah, we were right in his office.
So tell us about that, and tell us the intricacies of that. Something.
What happened is that it served a very good lesson for me, because in addition to Cal not having the sound unit, the type of camera I was using was a French camera, and what you had to do was open it up and then set the f-stop after you read it on a light meter. And I forgot to do that. I'm halfway through his speech and I see that we have no exposure. I mean, it's all whited out.
That's the same thing as having the lens on the top of the film.
Well, it's like having it wide open, overexposure. So when he got through, I said, very good, Senator. I wonder if you'd do it again, just for insurance footage. And this time I was right. Okay.
And he did it?
Oh yeah.
What kind
and
of
he did it almost verbatim. By God.
Well, he was a brilliant man. There's no question about it.
I mean, it almost like it was written on the wind, and he went right down the rack. Because I had the soundtracks, which came across fine, and I compared them, almost the same length and with the same content. It was amazing. The other thing that was amazing was when I was shooting Ted Kennedy. He was in a room about 3 times the size of this one with a whole bunch of youngsters. And he's just sitting there, and I'm shooting his rapport with youngsters and some of the campaigns he was building and everything else. This is in favor of the United Rubber Workers. It's something that Peter was working on. And I had this very exotic French camera that the magazines come off and you put them on and there's no sound. It's absolutely blimped. There's no sound at all. And I'm probably twice the distance we are now. I've got it up by my ear. Of course, I can hear things turning in there, but nobody else could. But I ran out of film. I heard it go click, click, click as it went past the gate for the last time. And Ted Kennedy turned to me and said, you're out of film. Now,
Oh, my
how
heavens.
in thunder? I almost dropped through the floor. It really surprised me. I slapped another magazine on and we kept going, but
No kidding.
that far away, and with everything going on, he's talking to people and he's pulling it all in. He picked up on that.
Now, you're out of film.
I'll tell you, that's a part of the human being that really blew my mind down there. It just did.
Those are two stories. Now, could you tell us quickly, because we don't want to take too terribly much time because you have so much to offer today, could you tell us quickly what Hubert Humphrey was like, actually, because we never have had anyone who's gone into his office.
Well, yeah,
I suspect Ted Kennedy we know, but...
He was sorry he was late, and he was very businesslike, and he was used to film setups. In other words, here comes the lights. He's not about to hide his eyes or shade or anything. He made sure that he was sitting in a place, and we checked the background before we turned anything on and got it rolling. It was a simple 2.5, 3-minute statement about the United Rubber Workers, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, Peter Bonmarito, for the sake of history, was the Secretary-Treasurer of the United Rubber Workers,
right.
And he now is retired, but he was a very powerful man in those days. And I'm going to assume that Peter Bonmarito is the one who asked for this film to be made. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, he had hired another outfit, and I had my own company, and he'd hired another outfit, and they decided while we're down in Washington, I was down there shooting footage for them, okay? They decided about 2 o'clock in the morning that they were going to go out of business. And they either took it over or it was done. We'd all go home. I had breakfast with Mr. Bonmarito and determined how much money was left in the budget. And there we were, darned if we weren't. So we went ahead and kept going.
That's wonderful.
And
now,
finished
also,
the film.
for the sake of history, let's say who Calmer Clifford was.
Well, Cal Clifford is
Dr. Calmer
right.
Clifford.
He's an optometrist, my optometrist for many years, who's retired now. But Cal's mind was right in the middle. I never knew anybody quite so sharp on everything under the sun.
Oh, yeah. There's no
Truly.
question about that.
Yeah.
Just a joy to talk to.
But anyway, we had a good time working together.
Tell us more about these films and these documentaries.
Yeah,
please.
sure.
Because we're-
Okay, well, let's start out at the beginning.
All right.
Once upon a time, Bob West had found a retired blues singer in Cleveland.
Bob West, tell us who Bob West was.
Well, Bob West is Reverend Bob West, but he's very active in collecting films and writing for films. He's a Kent State professor. He has a church out here in Westfield Center, but he's creative as all get out. Anyway, he'd found R.B. Stidham. That was the fellow's name. And he knew all about him. So we went up and we approached R.B., and we were shooting a film called Bluesman, which we've got. And during the filming, Channel 25
And
got
tell
hold
us,
of
for
us.
the sake of
Channel
history,
25 is the
our
PBS station.
PBS station, Public Broadcasting System
right.
station.
And Channel 25 got a hold of us and said, look, we're shooting a series called Media Machine. And in this series, we're concentrating on somebody shooting, somebody editing, somebody writing, somebody producing. We'd like to have yours, the last one, which includes shooting, writing, producing, editing, the whole Megillah as a final. And they did. They shot a half-hour tape on us called Media Machine. The whole crew was pretty neat. Out of that, Michael Fitzpatrick was leading the shooting crew that followed us around for 6 weeks while we were on location shooting. And Mike Fitzpatrick had a flair for music. He wrote and composed his own music in addition to everything else. What happened is that I applied to the Ohio Arts Council for a film, one I had in mind. It's called Earth Song. And they only gave out 3 of them that year, but I was one of them.
You from the Ohio Arts Council.
Yeah.
What
from
year
the
would
Ohio
that
Arts
have been?
I don't know. Let's see. 1975.
1975, okay.
Yeah, this is the card that allows Earth Song to be put into the Library of Congress, where it sits now, my perpetuity through the centuries.
Okay, the Library of Congress, this is the card right here. And it says Earth Song, motion picture, Homer E. Baldwin, 1975, 15-minute SD, whatever, what's SD mean?
I don't know.
Okay, color, 16 millimeter. Summary, a pictorial poem which offers a visual experience against the soundtracking using the thoughts and phrases of the American Indian.
Yep.
Down at the bottom, for the Library of Congress. Tremendous. You're the only person in Wadsworth ever to have a film in the Library of Congress.
Well, it may be, but it's there, and
Right.
it's one of my legacies, okay? And I'm pleased with it because of that. Okay, well, anyway, after we got through Earth Song, Mike Fitzpatrick, who had been the director on the Channel 25 deal, wrote some original music for it. And I still brought it in under budget, and I suppose that's why it went to the Library of Congress. It's probably in an area called Films Under Budget. Click, because it was.
You forgot one of the adjectives there.
What's that?
Outstanding films under budget.
Well, it'll do. It's the best I could do with what I had to do with. So, anyway, I worked for Goodyear Aerospace for a lot of years, and I would spend a trip now and then in the wintertime out at El Centro, California, or Yuma Proving Ground, or down in Florida. We were testing things, okay? And I won't go into great detail on that. I'm sure they're not classified anymore. I had to have a big classification. But up the Ravenna Arsenal, I remember once, we were dropping things. And the deployment is what you shoot. And you shoot that, here's the drop chopper, and here's lower and behind is where the camera sits. And you take the door off, and you sit on the floor with your feet on the riggers and put the belt around you, and you got the best seat in the house.
With the door off?
Oh, yes.
And you're looking out of an empty door, or rather a door that's not there?
Yeah. No, you're sitting on the floor with your feet on the skids. Okay? Great spot. I love that. But when the drop chopper drops the item, your chopper drops with it until it deploys, and then you circle around it. It's neat.
Scary, too.
Well, it was scary because one day we landed and I went to take the safety belt off and it had never been fastened. That's how tight it can get. You got to have your mind in the middle pretty much the time. Okay, well, anyway, I worked with the Golden Knights when I was with Goodyear Aerospace, and it was a neat crew.
The Golden Knights needs to have an explanation.
Okay, the Golden Knights is the Army crack parachute.
That's right. That's right, exactly.
They were testing some equipment. So I'm standing right on the tailgate of a C-130, one of those big flying transports that's got a thing on the back, and I'm tethered to the ground, oxygen mask. We were at 17 grand, and up there you got to have oxygen, but I couldn't get close to my camera, so I took the oxygen mask off and shot my shot and then put it back on. And the old sergeant back there was having a fit because I took it off. He expected I had a parachute too. He expected I'd go walk on the sky, I guess,
my heavens,
from lack of oxygen. But there were a lot of interesting things that in the aerospace field, and I'm not going to go into them because I can't. But boy, could I tell you,
I would imagine. Now those were top secret that you were doing at the time.
They were secret. They weren't top secret.
Well, even in that there was a certain degree of confidentiality.
Yeah.
Now, what did you have to do to get that confidentiality? I mean, what because I think that I remember people coming around asking about who you were in town.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I can't remember exactly now when, but
well, I had to be cleared for that job over there, and it was important that once you're cleared, you be given the opportunity to do what you can and what you have to do with.
See, my brother Henry graduated with you.
Yes.
And I'm not positive, because of course he's dead now, but I'm not positive, but I think that he and other class members were asked about you. And I can still, they're just very vague in my mind, but I remember something about the confidentiality that they had to establish because what you were doing was taking pictures of things which no one else could see.
Yeah, that's especially important. I went down to Eglin Air Force Base, my first field trip. Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. And they had a missile, which had a number of different properties about it. This was during the Vietnam situation. They had a missile down there that ran on rollers and launched itself and then smashed into the subject. And I'm down there to help. And the night before, something happened to my boss, and I got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning that we would be taking a shot at 10 o'clock the next morning, and it was all my responsibility. And the problem lies not in the responsibility, but boy, you better have every exposure right, and you have your camera set and your high-speed photography loaded right so it doesn't shred in the machines, because that's all they were going to have after they spent maybe $4 million setting this up.
Oh my heavens, what a responsibility.
All they'd have was film.
What a responsibility. What happened to the boss? Or if you can't tell.
Well, I could tell, but he got a little tight and called the home office, see? And they sent for him, right?
Okay, I understand.
Okay. Anyway, it was it really hit me hard, first trip in the field, but I got it. I talked to the man, and here's how you learn. I talked to the lieutenant that was in charge of the field, and I asked him one thing: may I be the first one downrange after the thing is over with, so I can pick up the information I needed with a camera, destruction of the target or what have you. And he said, oh, well, we got to get the range safety officer down there first, and but you can go down second. So I shot from the blockhouse, which had never been done before. Wild sound, in other words, I could dub it in. And we had the high-speed cameras on the pass, and then the range safety officer went down on the range, said, it's okay. I hop in the Jeep and I go down there, and I'm laying on the ground and I'm shooting up, shooting this, people coming in, what have you. And there's this gritty black stuff, okay? Real gritty. Well, it wasn't until I was all through shooting that I found out it was high explosive. Tritonol, it's called. And I'm laying in it and rolling in it and everybody walking in it and everything else, because it had been decimated because of the type of shot. The first one took off, but blew the second charge all to pieces, all the way around.
Wow.
Tritonol.
Well, could that have hurt you in any way?
Only if I decide I want to have a smoke, I think. But I've quit smoking now after 52 years, so I was just very fortunate there. There's two instances there, the no seat belt and the Tritonol, that make that kind of work pretty fascinating. And you walk on an edge sometimes. Yeah,
and your mother probably thought when she gave you a camera one time, well, this would be nice because he'll be doing something very safe, just taking pictures, that's all. Here you are.
They never thought about it, but it really grabbed my imagination.
I would imagine.
My dad had a Bell and Howell, one of those little ones, and after he died, Mom gave it to me, and that's where it started at.
Now, you did this for the Goodyear Aerospace for a long, long time. And you were doing military work, and you were going from one place to another.
Yeah.
Did you do anything more than with the military?
No, not as such.
Not as such.
Uh-huh.
Then what did you do with the?
Well, when I got laid off, see, the Vietnam War hit the aerospace field badly when it was over. See, so I was one of them that walked a bit. Started my own business then, and stayed with it. I remember once that I had to shoot one for Goodrich, okay? And Goodrich, it was to be shown in Europe at a big sales conference meeting. And what it amounted to was some clown, and he was like a clown. He was a Goodrich employee, but he was really capricious, who plays a kind of a James Bond figure going through these things. And this script called for him constantly to be taking a cigar from the secret agent, man, woman, or child, whoever it may be, and lighting it up, and of course, boom. And this is a continuity factor throughout. And they had one where I've tried every way in the world without really blowing him up, you know. And so I devised a scheme one day, and I'm pleased with this. I'm pleased to share it with you. I devised a scheme up at Greenleaf Park. We set a charge out in the open, but with trees between us. And then I got all the kids in the neighborhood, and I got them down along the edge of the lake. And they all had couple handfuls of stones. And I shot from across the way, and here comes the fireball up the trees, and then I hollered, and the kids all threw stones, and the whole lake just, it's the cheapest explosion you could ever figure. But that's the kind of thing you had to do.
That is clever.
Yeah, well, it worked, all right, and it was very easy to do. Before that, I was interested in the special effects, and so I built an airplane, so-called, in my garage, and pulled it out. We lived on West Good, and I had a pretty good-sized backyard, and we pulled it out there. And I had worked all winter on it. It was covered with rubberized fabric, and it was a biplane, had 2 wings that just went out this far on either side, because I'm going to come in tight on this. And it would hold a person, and it was painted red on one side with the German cross, and on the other side it was a hat and a ring squadron with the green and the brown. And I'd changed the headrest and the machine guns depending which side I'm shooting on, and I had 2 airplanes, okay? Well, I needed a propeller on it, something that would run. So, and this is, at this time, West Good was the last road north of town.
That's right.
I could look out across the fields. There was no Valley View, no Knollwood, no nothing, just Sharon Center up there. And
one great big farm.
so I started it, and boy, I about shook my thing apart. So I did a little reading on physics and found out that the propeller was not leveled out as far as weight goes on each side of the hub. So I drill a hole in it. That's the easiest way to get a heavy thing light. Well, the next time I ran it, those holes buzzed like a million bees, and a woman later on over on Valley View, when I ran it out, was hanging up her wash. Boy, she started taking it down. It looked like that thing was coming right through her living room. It was just sitting in the backyard, my airplane.
Oh, your airplane went through?
Yeah, with the propeller running on it.
Wow.
Electric motor. And so she took down her washing in a hurry. I remember seeing that and wondering why. Later she told me, and I said, oh, that thing can't move. It's like putting a propeller on a rock. It's not supposed to. It's
How
for a
big was it?
close-up.
How big was the airplane?
It was full size.
A full-size one?
Full-size fuselage, gear and tail, and just short stubby wings on either side, because I'm coming in tight. I don't need the whole thing.
You don't need the wings on it.
I used models for the long shots. So anyway, in 1985, when I was actually up here and starting to do some work, my first good full-size tape, complete with everything, a beginning, middle, and end, a title, good cleared music, things of this nature, was on the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association, up in Wisconsin. And that was the first one, and right up till now, it's been about 59 or 60 tapes on all kinds of things. Just this last year, I've got a 2-hour tape called An Alaskan Diary. One is Once Upon a Small Ship, and the other half of it is the country inside. You know, I did a special for the Methodist Church, where for their building fund. Pinocchio, I particularly love that. It took a 1.5 years of shooting. A friend of mine rebuilt an F-24 Fairchild airplane. And that's that was 50 years ago that plane came through. So in 1947, and he found it in Pennsylvania and brought it back here, and I followed it through all the way and put out a production called Pinocchio, A Love Story. Now, these guys who fly, they're something else. They are a unique segment of our culture. They're like mountain men were 150 years ago. They really are, because they lay their lives right on the line, and they have to know so much. But to rebuild an airplane with all those ribs and spars, rebuild 80% of the wing. It's all brand new. But he rebuilt the entire airplane, and I followed it through right to the test flight. And they're really unique human beings.
Why would you call it Pinocchio?
Well, the F-24 had two types of motors. One was a radial engine, which all the cylinder heads exposed, and the other was an inline engine, which came way out. And he chose that, and because this Fairchild had a long nose,
Okay.
it was called Pinocchio.
Had nothing to do with somebody's lies or something like that, is it?
No, had nothing to do with wanting to be a real boy or a real airplane or anything else, because it really was.
Now, how did you get tied up with something like that? I mean, does someone call you on the telephone? Are you in the telephone directory as Homer Baldwin? I can do anything that you ask me to do.
No, if I'm in the telephone directory at all, it's Homer Baldwin. I will listen to what you have to say. But no, it's not a case of.
But how do people get tied up with you? I mean, is it word of mouth or what?
Might be.
Because it's all over the United States. It's not from here to California to Georgia to Texas to everywhere.
Well, that's just the trail I made. The spot I'm in is right here now. I returned to Wadsworth. Okay.
Yeah.
John Wayne would say it like this: "Mis raíces están aquí." Now, as near as I know, I haven't cracked a Spanish book in 50-some years, but that means my roots are here.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much what it is. My roots are here. And so I'm trying to work, in cable, trying to work in the area with the public. You wanted to know where I traveled? Well, that's where I traveled. There may be still some faint footprints in the dust. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure there are.
But I'm...
If we do not want to run out of time, and I'm going to ask the question now, and you can put it in anywhere you need to, but we'd like to hear about the 60 documentaries also when you get through the film. So if you feel that we're going to run out of time, you start telling us about the documentaries.
Okay, I'll be glad to.
Yeah.
Okay, these are documentaries I'm telling you about. Pinocchio.
Oh, these are documentaries.
Church, yes. This is what I'm doing this year so far, since January. I bought my own editing suite, which composes 10 pieces that all go together to give you the things that you normally would expect in a professional production. The Airmen, that's what I'm making now. That'll be done pretty quick.
Wadsworth Airmen?
Yeah, this is on men who build their own planes and fly them and test fly them. I spent last Wednesday in an open cockpit over this area shooting things from the sky and in the sky and everything in this experimental aircraft.
An open cockpit.
Yeah, yeah. We were bundled up pretty good. It wasn't too bad. Then I've got one called Outtakes, which is currently, that's about ready for release. And that one is on the current situation of the Medina County Park System. They're about to open up a couple of them.
Right.
And it starts out with River Styx Park, the opening, and it's called Outtakes because I have made productions on things before, but no one has ever seen these particular pieces because they were outtakes. They were taken out of the regular production.
Oh, I see. In other words, something like the bloopers or something like that? Yeah, these were outtakes.
Only they weren't bloopers. They were just pieces I couldn't use because of time or something else. Or
so you're making a film of outtakes then?
It's called Outtakes, and it's covered all the new applications, the new parks that are opening up for the Medina County Park System and introducing people to it.
Well, now that's something that really needs to be done because, as Medina County grows, we start losing land, and we have to have more parks so that we can preserve those.
That's right. No, I had made one called Sacred Ground. It's an hour long, about 4 years ago.
And what's that about?
That's the Medina County parks, all of them. I got into all of them, even where people can't get, because I was working with them. The other thing that I just recently did was a dire adversity, and that covered the schools when the Twister took the roof off down there. I only had 5 days production on that, dude, but I shoot it and then edit it. I shoot it as I knew I was going to edit the storyline and make it up every day. What I'm working on right now is another one for the schools, and it's called The Next Step.
And what is that about?
Okay, The Next Step is about the basic situation that faces the schools. Now, it's one thing to put a thing on the ballot and vote for it or not vote for it. And I got to thinking that when I was asked to do it, that I wanted to do something on a location. So I have spent, about 3 days now on location in the schools. Talk about a crack in the floor. You're going to see it, and you're going to see how important it is. I'm not going to talk about crowded hallways. I got them. I'm not going to talk about the fact that a teacher has to move 4 times a day, take everything with her because there's no place for her to set down. I've got that. What it amounts to is I am shooting a documentary to inform and educate the people who utilize cable or whatever, so that they can make a better
choice about the...
Absolutely.
Right.
It hasn't leaned one way or the other.
Could I ask a question about that?
Sure.
The other day we went to the hospital opening of the new emergency wing, and I was sitting there talking with, I think, I don't know, J.D. Henson and Tony Solaro, and photographer came up, and before she could take our picture, she had to have us sign a release. Now, when you took that wide shot of all of those kids in the hallway, did you have to go and get all of those releases?
No.
What is the difference?
Here's the thing. She's a professional photographer.
Okay.
Okay. She's going to use it to put in the paper to make money.
All right.
Okay. Now that's the difference. The real thing is that in the field of exposure, whether it's tape or still pictures or whatever, you got to use a modicum of gray matter. You got to keep your mind in the middle. We have enough pornographic and pseudo-pornographic and ill-reputed photographs to last you 2 lifetimes these days.
Well,
I don't know why anybody
yeah.
fools around with that. It's just stupid. It's wrong, and it's not even polite. And I believe that you have to be polite to make a dent in this life. So, anytime that I shoot, if someone doesn't want to be in it, all I have to do is tell me, and I'll figure another camera angle or obliterate it. But mostly, if you shoot someone, in this case, the children in the hall, and I haven't told them, I haven't stopped them. I said, come through here all en masse, as long as I don't give them directions, as long as I'm merely observing the passing parade, then I'm within the law. But of course, I'm not going to go in the boys' restroom and shoot.
No.
That's not within the conscience. It may be within the law, but
Within
law
conscience.
without logic isn't worth much.
That's right.
Sure.
I'm glad to hear you say that. That certainly makes a
true.
lot of sense to good living people.
Yeah. Well, in everything I've got a whole series that are going into the library, the ones that I run up here. The series is called The Passing Parade, and then it has subtitles because it's got a variety of different subject matter in it.
What are some of the subject matters that you have in the passing parade?
How about To Be a Kid and Ride One?
To be a kid and ride one?
Yeah.
You mean a little goat?
No,
No?
I'm talking about a railroad train during the Wadsworth Blue Tip Festival that went from here to Rittman.
You went from here to Rittman on the train.
A lot of kids on that thing that had never even seen one before, let alone be in one.
And you were in that.
I spent 2 days
And what did you
riding
do
all
with that
over
one?
and
That
shooting.
sounds so interesting.
Well, it was shown up here, and it's also on Passing Parade Volume 2. I've got 4 volumes down there right now, and I'm working on number 5. It's like painting with color, motion, and sound. I'd like to think that that's what I do, because when I'm through, I leave a story or an impression, and that's what a painting does, in effect. It's how it affects you. So there's my interest in working with color, motion, and sound. Call it a legacy. Who knows? All you can do is do what you can and what you have to do with, and want to, and give up the time. Trade it off for something else. Keep your ear to the ground, keep your eyes on the sky, be polite to people, and hey, there's more than 1 million stories out there.
Oh, there are a lot of them. Could we leave this just for a little bit, and we have to come back to it because we want to make sure we get it all in, but can you tell us the difference between, you said that your father had a small camera, I've forgotten the name of it already.
Bell and Howell.
Bell and Howell.
Yeah.
When you first started, what was the equipment like, and how did a person, and I'll say this with all affection, how does a person who is as old as we are learn about these new techniques?
Okay.
Because most people don't.
Well, I'll tell you, In this particular case, I didn't know anything at all about motion picture cameras. Shutter speeds, exposure rates, speed of the camera itself, types of lenses. And I picked that up and I shot it, and I got this, and some of it was overexposed, some of it underexposed, and you just keep working with it. That's what I did. Then I got my own, and then I got a bigger one, then I got a sound camera, and then I got a blimp camera.
What is a blimp camera?
A blimp camera is a camera that you use to shoot sound, just like you and I are now, but you cannot hear anything running on it. It's,
oh, I see.
You could do that with any kind of a camera, but it takes a great big blimp they put around it to quiet it.
To make sure that
this
there's
is a
no
French
noise
camera
whatsoever,
that's already blimped, self-blimped when they build it. And neat camera. But it's like you learn. All the time you learn. You never quit learning. And failing. You fail while daring greatly. And that's important.
I like
really
that. I like that. That you fail while daring greatly. That's great.
Go beyond your capability. Don't fall back and regroup and say, well, this is what I can do. No. Think, I wonder if I can do this, or this is what I want to do. And then you work toward it. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking to somebody else that's already in the field and asking how you do this, what the advice is, whether you're reading or whether you're actually winding the film into the camera, setting it up, and going for it. Because when that camera is through running and the film is processed, you know where you stand. It's almost like life. I don't want to sound preachy, but if you want something, do it. I guess that's the way our house got built.
Yeah, if you want something, do it.
It's been 40 years since I designed it, roughly, over in Akron,
some time,
the Art Institute.
Some time to bring it to fruition.
It took a good architect to, bring it to fruition.
Homer, tell us about the camera that you have. Is something about 10 different phases and editing and all of that. What is that all about?
Oh, the phases? You mean in editing film?
Well, no. You just got something recently.
Okay, I have 10 different pieces of equipment.
Okay, now what are those pieces of equipment, and what do you do with them? Where do you have them?
Okay, all right. What I've got is an editor controller. Okay, that controls everything. That's the brains of the unit.
Because you're talking dummies now, so you have to explain each one of those.
This is a device which has buttons and whistles and wheels on it that makes everything else do what you want it to do once it's programmed. Then I've got a special effects generator, which does things like it'll dissolve, it'll bring a picture flipping in. All you have to do is hit a button and it does it. Whatever you want. As a matter of fact, that special effects generator's got 279 different effects. Wipes going back and forth, take you and put you the size of a pinhole and blow you back up again. All you do is push a button or hit a number series.
Wow.
Okay? Then, in addition to that, is the titler. You need titles that fly in, fade in, jump in, one after another, roll, crawl across the bottom of the page, whatever, you program that.
Now, are these 10 different pieces of equipment, or is this just one great big computer that you have?
Well, you might say so. It all ties together, but each one is a piece of the computer. Then I've got 2 screens, A-roll and B-roll, and VCRs underneath them that are connected up with the controller. And I've got a record screen over here. So I've got 3 televisions across the way. And what I do is program things in here, A-roll to B-roll. In other words, I just move a thing, and it goes from the picture A fades out, and picture B fades in over the top of it. That's called a dissolve. But you got to have something going in each of them, okay? And it'll go on the screen over here.
And then does that make another film? Is that what it does?
Yeah, over here on the recorder.
Makes another film.
You're making a whole different
Now,
operation.
is this something you have in your home?
Oh, yes.
And it's small enough that you can put it into your home?
It's as long as 3 of those devices right there with the television on it.
Right. Now, the question that I'm probably going to ask is going to sound as dumb as it can be, but I don't really know. That seems to be something more than just the ordinary. It seems to be just about as much as they have on a commercial television station. Is that correct?
It is. It's like they have up here, only it's has to do with numbers. What's the new phrase for this equipment that is run by numbers? I don't know what it is.
Oh, you got me in this.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's the latest because I just
still
bought
trying to
it
do box cameras.
in
and
February.
We're talking about all these things. Homer, could we ask another question too
Sure.
that we needed historically? And when the reason I asked about this, the camera from the Bell and Howell to all of this other kinds of equipment. The last time we had you on, you began to tell us about the types of pieces of equipment that we had here, the archaicness of them, and all of that. And then we're building up toward that. And your a portion of that, particularly because you were involved with the mechanical part, but then you were also involved with the administrative part on the commission, the Cable Commission.
Yeah.
What were the pieces of equipment that we had to get? How did we get them? Did you beg, borrow, steal, buy? How did you get them?
I'm laughing because a thought came back to me after all these eons. I was very active in the Cable Commission.
You still are, aren't you?
Well, no, I got out of it a couple years ago so I could spend more time in the production.
Okay, but you were until just recently.
13 out of the 15 years I sat on it, yeah. And back in the old days, we used to meet in the library here.
In the school library?
Yeah, school library at Wadsworth Senior High. And be a long row and one camera would pan back and forth. And I've got footage on it. But one of the things that was funny is because I had to learn about this equipment. I was kind of charged with buying it or recommending it.
That's what I wanted to hear you talk about.
So I had to learn about it, see? And so I would. I'd do it. And I got a big floating platform, with wheels on it, like a blackboard, and covered it over, and I had this thing all laid out. I went into the meeting, and it came my turn, and I got up with this presentation, and telling the details and this and this and this. And Bill Laren said, "Homer?" I said, "Yeah, well," he says, "why don't you just buy it?" He said, "We don't need a presentation." So I never made another presentation from then on. I went ahead and got it.
So you did buy it?
Yeah, I remember that so well.
Do you remember the budget that you had when you first started with cable TV?
There wasn't much. We only had that 5% coming in, and it was all used in some fashion. The equipment we had was archaic and decadent, 3/4 inch tape instead of quarter or ½ inch. Big machines, they would malfunction half the time. Fry was always finagling with them and trying to get them to work and this, that, and the other thing. He had some good background, but he got tired of working for Warner after a while. Worked for us for Wadsworth for a while, and then founded his own business, Friday Productions.
Friday, that's right, Frye or Fryday Productions.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the films. One of the films that everyone in Wadsworth remembers, of course, is Wednesday's Children.
Oh, yes.
Now, you had in there a lot of kids, and you did a lot of localized kinds of casting. Starting from, I'm driving down the road, and I think I would like to make a film about Wednesday's Children. Starting from there and going to the end, what did you do and how long did it take? Because, it just doesn't happen.
Right. No. Bob West and Cal and I got together, looked over the script. Bob had written it. Looked over the script, and I had come up with some money from an inheritance, and so I decided, I didn't want to get to be an old man and wonder what if. And it wasn't hurting anybody else. And so we purchased the equipment. I had some of it, but we purchased others. And Bob was a teacher at Kent State, and he went on a sabbatical for a year. Cal invested some of his money in it, and we got Margie Dodrell, who's very active in the Cleveland arena, stage and screen and everything else, to handle the part of the mother. We got young Kelly, Tom Kelly, to handle the lead, the bad boy. We had a fella named Murray to handle the father, and we started shooting. Mark Freedy was good enough to allow us to use his home, exterior and interior, as the setting.
And Mark Freedy lives on the north side of 261,
Yeah.
just a smidgen east of Hartman Road.
Right.
Backing off the road, and behind him is nothing but a big field.
Yeah.
And a lake.
Yeah. 469 Akron Road, as I
Right.
recall. Or 469.
And at that time, you were living in the house in the front of that,
Yeah.
or close to the front
Yeah,
of that.
that was 469. He lived at 461. Anyway, we shot around there, and Philly was, with
Philly,
the
your
shooting
wife,
crew
Phyllis.
and everybody in the cast and everything, on our back deck, Philly was always dishing out gobs of food because, boy, I'll tell you, they really took it down. They
You get a bunch of kids and they'll
inhaled.
get you out of house at home, that's
Well,
right.
these are all adults, the ones that we were on location with and moving around, and we were really all over the county for some of the things we did.
Now, in that...
Took a year and a half.
I was
to
going
shoot
to
it.
say, a year and a half of this. It is a
Including the
very
editing.
difficult thing to get all these things together.
Yeah, it is.
Not only do you have to worry about the logistics of it, but you have to worry about weather, you have to worry about your equipment. All of you are on full-time jobs.
Yep.
Just how on earth did you get it all together?
Persistence.
Persistence? Well,
Yep.
that's
That's
surely
really
is-
sounds like a facetious answer, but it is the truth. Women are born persistent. Did you know that?
I think that they probably are.
They are. That's
They never
why
lose.
when they're 16, they look at a 16-year-old boy and it's like he just got out of the crib, because he doesn't have any, for too much anyway, points on the horizon, going here, going there, but a woman does at that age, and they're after it. But I think they don't realize how persistent they are because it's an inherent, basic thing. So what boys can learn from girls is persistence, and I learned that a long time ago. It came to me one day, I don't know why, and so that's why when I start on a project, I'm persistent,
You
and I
stay
believe
with
it.
it.
I believe it.
With the success of Wednesday's Children, you did also some other documentaries, which I think were presented at one of your high school graduations.
Oh,
What was that?
I don't know. At my high school graduation?
I'm sorry, your high school reunion.
Yeah.
One of the films that you did, you had a presentation at one of your reunions.
Do you remember what it was?
I
don't-
can't for the life of me because I'm younger than you are.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I do
You were
remember
Phillies.
that my brother Henry, who was there, came back
Yeah.
and was very much impressed with it. And he told me all about it. And he said, I can't believe that Homer Baldwin could get this thing up just that fast for our graduation. And I said, well, maybe he has been working on it. I said, I don't think that he did. I think that he just knew that we had to have it, so he just very quickly did it.
It may have been that he was watching a monitor. When we had our graduation, we tried it. Just an idea. I shot it from standing cameras and everything else at the night that we had our dinner, and it made a nice little vehicle for the class of 45.
And
It'll be pure gold in another 10 years.
Oh, it surely will be.
Anybody that's still alive.
Yeah.
We did the same thing with the class of 47 then.
Which, of course, is Phyllis's.
What happens is the first night, they're out at our house. We park next door in a vacant lot, and they're at our house, and it really breaks the ice. It isn't like walking into the hotel or the restaurant, and here's this person you know and that person you know. At our place, everybody gets to know everybody.
Oh, of course.
And they're all over the place. In my case, I had a couple of people who were confined to wheelchairs, and I live in a house of steps.
Yes.
So we set them up in the garage by my studio. Becky Krieger.
Becky
was one.
Krieger is the
Yeah.
one you're thinking, Becky Opplinger.
Yeah. And what I did was put a camera on the deck and then run a line up to a monitor, so it's almost like Becky was there. She could see everybody down there, and of course everybody was up there to see her anyway. But I put this all together in a tape and got it out for those who who take interest in something like some people don't. They could care less.
The reason I asked the question, Homer, is that what is the fastest film that you made, and why did it go so fast?
Okay, the fastest one actually was just about 3 weeks ago for the schools.
And why? How did it go so fast?
Okay, that thing hit Saturday night.
Saturday night about 10 o'clock.
I was out of town at a clam bake. Monday morning, about 10:20, the phone rings, and it's Mr. Parsons' secretary, Miss Johnson.
Chuck Parsons is the superintendent of schools.
Superintendent of schools, and she said if it was all right, Mr. Parsons would come by that evening to talk to me about the roof of the school.
Let's give Mrs. Johnson's first name for historical evidence.
I don't
okay,
know.
we'll find out.
Yeah. So I said, okay. Well, Chuck showed up, and he said, this is what happened. You know, the tornado took the roof off the north part of the school, and all this, the third floor, it just inundated. Ceilings falling down, floors rippling. Water has a deleterious effect on things that were built in 1907.
1907.
Yeah.
Been 90 years already.
And he needed something. So that's when I came up with a dire adversity. And the only reason I was able to shoot it is because the specialist outfit dealing with damage and repair and everything, major damage, had taken some still pictures. So I went up there right away and started picking up what they're doing now, and I could insert the still. I did a lot of voiceovers and interviews, and it was important because school was going to start in 8 days.
That's correct.
From that Monday. And so I got that thing out in 5 days. I would shoot all day. I had the storyline in my head, shoot all day, and then edit it at night, then wait for the next day to come along for the next segment. And that's what I did. In 3.5 days, I had it shot, mostly edited, and I gave the copy to the studio here the 5th day, and John ran it in wherever he could. And
I saw it on the 5th day.
Did you?
I watched that.
Okay.
I was absolutely flabbergasted that you could have had that much footage. It was a half-hour film.
Yeah.
That you had that much footage, that you had it narrated, you had the storylines, you had the whole thing edited.
I plotted it.
Right there on television 5 days later.
Yeah. They said, well, you know, we got to have this place ready for school Monday. And I said, I got you beat. I got to have this ready by Friday.
That was extraordinary.
All of them helped tremendously. And Mr. Parsons and Mr. DeZazzi, the principal of Central. And
Steve
Bruce
DeShauz.
Lorenz. All of them.
DISCHAUZ.
Right.
Right. So we get
all
that.
of them really helped.
We're going to run out of time again, I'm afraid, but I need to get something that we didn't get the last time, and that is the children and how they involve themselves. Your children, that is, your children. You and Phyllis have 3 children.
Yeah. Right.
And how they've involved themselves with what you're doing and what influence you did that helped them in what they're doing now.
Well, I look back through the old films, and Jane, our oldest one, used to be the one that I would focus on running and going here or doing that or slow motion or whatever in the old black and white film days. Janie was well above that, but she is a movie collector, a buff of all the old movies now. That's what the exposure left her with. Next comes Tom. Tom and Scott were my gaffers and grips. In other words, they carried equipment and plugged in lights and followed their old man around, and just in general were there watching. They were really impressed with what we were doing. Maybe we had a big model airplane, we were running it down a cord and we we're going to explode at the end. They got exposed to that kind of thing after I had learned to do it, because I only had one model airplane. But they were one of the stone throwers when we did the job over in Greenleaf Park, and Tom is he's a basic artisan. He works in wood, he carves birds, he's a very detailed ornithologist in that respect. He's got the frame shop and gallery downtown on College Street, and I have taken paintings, my watercolors, and given them to him and say, hey, I have no creativity in matting and framing, do something with it. And he really does. He turns them into something that I'm proud of. I'm proud to have my painting in there, you see. And just recently he's purchased a a new piece of equipment that allows him to take a snapshot like this and blow it up like this without losing any detail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. It's a pretty expensive machine, but he hopes to tailor it toward artists who wish to make prints, but not a great many of them. Right now, if you want to print, you go to a printer, and for $1,200, you get 100 of them. Well, suppose someone only needs half a dozen prints at $24 a piece. That's a better bargain than the $1,200 because you'll have them forever.
Yeah, and you aren't going to be using them. What about number
prints.
3? We're going to run out of time with let's get to number 3. Your number 3 son.
Oh,
a child.
Scott.
Right.
Scott's a printer, and a pretty good one, they tell me. So, and he's up in Medina, but his great forte is the excellent way he's raised his children. They are polite, they are well-mannered, they are aware. They're just a pleasure to have around.
And that's a legacy in itself.
And our other daughter's on the West Coast. She just had a baby here about 3 years ago, and she's getting along fine. She's close to the earth. She graduated from Agricultural Technical School down at Worcester.
And she's
in the state of Washington now.
State of Washington now.
Yeah.
Starting with Dr. Baldwin, the dentist, about 125 years ago in Wadsworth. Give us a progression of all of these Baldwins that have gone all the way down to your grandchildren right now, so that we have a lineage of that side of the family.
Okay. There was Dr. H.A. Baldwin.
He was Homer Baldwin.
Yeah, Homer A. Baldwin.
And middle name was?
Alden.
Alden, okay. And you are?
He was married. His wife's name was Catherine, and she died before I was born in 1927. I never knew her. So he married another lady from Doylestown that we all called Aunt Mary. It was Mary something. And their children were Vance, my father, Gordon, my uncle,
who was a pianist,
Marion, and Maxine. Maxine Trent, Marion Hevlin, Heavilon. Coming down the line then, Phyllis and I have had Tom, Scott, Jane, and Laurel, okay? And Laurel just had a child named Nissa, okay?
And Laurel lives where?
In Washington.
She lives in Washington,
yeah.
And Jane lives where?
Jane lives in Boston. She had no children.
Both sides of the country.
Right, they went as far as the big water and quit. The boys stayed right here in town. Their umbilical cord had never been cut, I guess.
That's good.
Anyway,
Mom and Dad
they liked it here, and that's why they're here.
That's right.
But Tom has 2 children, Sarah and Danny, and Scott has Melissa and Sean and Matthew.
Okay.
Okay? And that leads down to, I think her name's Assisa, but that's Sarah, baby.
Sarah's,
which means that it's Phyllis and my great-grandchild.
Great-grandchild, right. Now,
I can get used to being a great-grandfather, but I can't get used to my son being a grandfather.
Son being a grandfather. Now let's go to your brothers. Your brother, Tom.
Yeah.
Your brother, Tom.
Okay.
And let's go with his lineage, so we have the right families together, because there are other Baldwins around.
Well, Tom is 3 years younger than I am, and he's very involved in township, but he always was involved in the city. Tom was always
He's the president of the Township Board of Trustees at the present time.
Yeah. Tom was always an extrovert, and I had to learn to be one, but he was born with it. He was a lot like Dad, and outgoing and capable. He has 4 daughters, I believe, and I can't tell you all their names. I'm sorry, I can't.
But one is an extraordinarily good organist. She's the organist of the Methodist Church right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
And the school system.
And the school system.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, got it. My sister had 2 girls.
And her sister's name is?
Joanne, and
Joanne.
she moved to Texas. Joanne Dodge. Before I married an Air Force retired fella. She had 2 girls. My other sister's named Marcia Scheimer, married Dick Scheimer. And she had 2 boys and 2 girls.
2 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah.
Homer, we are at the end of the hour once again, and you are so very, very interesting, because you are the only person ever to have had all of these kinds of films in the city of Wadsworth. We are grateful to you, grateful for the Baldwins, and certainly grateful that you have been willing to share with us. Again,
That's the
thank
word.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate your opportunity to share. That's exactly what my tapes and my paintings are supposed to do.
This is your legacy.
It is.